Okay, so it is the second Differential Diagnosis episode that you're going to be getting. Quite a considerable gap in between the last one, although for you it's probably been a week or two, depending on our upload schedule, because we still haven't decided on anything like that yet, because we're extremely professional. Today we want to take a look at, or we want to take a look back, rather, at the last decade, because that seems to be the in thing to do nowadays. And we figured we would have a look at an article that was uploaded by Time.com, best video games, or the 10 best video games of the 2010s. There are some incredibly obvious games on this list, and there are also some on here that I wouldn't have expected. I also have to just briefly apologise because my hamster has decided to wake up and have a drink in the middle of his night. So if there are any rustling sounds, I have to apologise in advance. But yeah, so we'll take a look at this. We'll take a look at this list. I'll start us off with the opening sort of gambit from Time.com. They've literally saying, video game industry was already $1 billion behemoth when it rolled into the 2010s. Over the past decade, the cultural cash of video games has grown and its profits are now greater than movies, television or music. 2010s are when the hobby stopped being something semi-niche and solidly took its place in the mainstream. I'd like to disagree with that opening statement immediately, because I am pedantic, and say that video games have been, video games have been a massive, massive cultural phenomenon. I would quite hasten to say all the way back when we were doing arcade cabinets and Pac-Man. I mean, people say it was a hobby, but you look at the sale figures for, those sort of machines back in the day, and you're laughing. But I digress. Time seemed to think that the 2010s going forward were when video games really sort of kicked into gear. I would say they've really kicked into gear in terms of monetary value.
Definitely, I would agree with that.
Mainly because of things like microtransactions, as they've so lovingly put in here for us, as well as things like the season pass, the battle passes, the online passes. It's, even the little things like being able to play online with your PlayStation, all that sort of stuff. It's all there, and that was where the sort of money train really kicked into gear. I would agree that the 2010s is really when the money started rolling in for this subculture. Yeah. But to say that it was the beginning, I don't think so somehow. But I don't know what your opinions are with that one.
I mean, it's kind of a thing. I guess it's probably the year it really broke into the mainstream, because before it was very popular. Yeah. But you wouldn't see celebrities advertising games or being involved in games as they were then or are now. No. Now, you wouldn't have recently saw like The Rock launching, the Xbox. And, he had that. But then you've also got people like Robert Downey Jr. in adverts for Call of Duty. Yeah. So it's really, it's been around for a long time. I think like this past decade is really when it actually just turbocharged into the mainstream. And absolutely alluded to the totally fact of it's when the money really started rolling in, and I would say the rampant avarice. Yeah. And I think the biggest really took over.
Yeah, I think the biggest sort of celebrities that we ever really saw, I want to say post the 2010s, was when, I'm pretty sure the DS launched before the 2010s, was when the old, like the art academies and the brain trainings, you had like things like the popular sort of like singers advertising the DS by playing things like Art Academy or brain training. You had like Beyonce, and I want to say there was a couple of like TV icons. You had that guy that was really famous on the radio for Love Nor Money, can't remember his name now, used to do Eurovision once upon a time. Anyway, I'm sure you'll be able to know because he was a northerner, if I remember rightly. But yes,
I think that Terry Wogan, are you?
That's him. There you go, Terry Wogan.
Really? Yeah, yeah. I think I'll have to look at that old album. I think it was Terry.
I'm pretty sure it was like Art Academy that he was in.
Terry Wogan advertising the Nintendo DS.
Exactly.
Who would have thunk it?
Well, definitely not anybody outside of the United Kingdom, that's for certain.
No.
But yeah, I mean, it is. There's lots of weird things happen in the 2010s when it comes to video games, and being published on sort of like the mainstream stage. For example, like the most recent one that springs immediately to mind is Fortnite having basically the setup to the Rise of Skywalker in its game. So like, you know, you go into the film to see Rise of Skywalker. If you don't play Fortnite, you're like, well, the Empire's back, the Emperor's back. What? Are you sure? I would say spoiler alert, but by the time this goes up, if you haven't seen it, that's on you, I'm afraid. Also,
it has been out
catch
for
my cheeky R2D2. Look at that, good times.
Oh, very, very nice, very nice. Yeah, it's a bit weird. I think we'd like to go through a list, have a discussion, and I think maybe we could put on some games that we thought were most influential that might have been missed by time.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, looking through this list, two of the most influential games of the last 2010s for me are already on here, and I'm sure you'll probably agree with me with the two that are on this list. But if we kickstart it, really.
Okay. Should we start off with the first one then?
We'll start from the very top then. So, Time at the very, very top of their list have put Grand Theft Auto 5 from 2013 as one of their most influential games, and their reasoning for this, or one of their best video games of all times, and their reasoning for this is primarily it is the most financially successful entertainment product of all time. And I would say that's Time's opinion, but they are 100% factually correct. I mean, we've got to remember that Grand Theft Auto 5 is a last generation game. This was a PS3 and Xbox 360 game that got remastered for modern day consoles, and PC have had it for donkeys now, thank God.
Yeah, we got it after it launched on
big time
PS4 and Xbox.
Rockstar seem to have a bit of a hate boner for the PC, and I'm not entirely sure why.
So you have people who will have bought the game 3 times.
Absolutely.
They've bought it on PS3 or Xbox, and then bought it again on Xbox One, PS4, and then again on PC.
I feel for the people that bought it on Xbox One, because now it's on Xbox Game Pass. I'm not sure how long that's on Xbox Game Pass for, whether or not it's a timed exclusive, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I mean, $6 billion in revenue.
It's absolutely crazy. You look at the numbers.
It really is, and that opening gambit there is all, again, if we go back to it at the very beginning, it's all down to the whole microtransactions thing. You look at the base game on its own is a massive sprawling game. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan. I don't really like the way that Rockstar games play. I think their stories are fantastic. I think their character development is second to none. But the problem for me with Rockstar games is they just do not innovate with their gameplay whatsoever. Their gameplay is atrocious. When you're trying to control any Rockstar character, even down to Red Dead Redemption 2, which I might add came out at the tail end of last year, like when you're moving these characters around, they feel like monster trucks with trolley wheels. I don't understand how they can like quality test these games. Yeah. And have the characters move so poorly, or the driving system so bad. I mean, even down to the combat in these games. Like when you're punching someone, you feel like you're punching someone, but you're on the moon. It just doesn't. It feels very
takes forever.
It does. It really does, and it feels like, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It feels like an early PS3 360 game, which, to be honest with you, is atrocious. In this day and age, if you're remastering Grand Theft Auto 5, I can sort of forgive it a little bit because it was a PS3 360 game. But let's remember, it came out around about the same sort of time frame as The Last of Us. And you look at the way that the games like The Last of Us control, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. But Red Dead Redemption 2, for me, epitomizes the whole Rockstar problem, where their games just they're so dated. They rely solely on a name. They rely solely on the graphical prowess that they have, that they just forget the gameplay side of it. But is it one of the best games of the 2010s? Absolutely. There's no question that Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of the best games of the 2010s. The money speaks for itself. Is it a good game to play? In my opinion, no. Is it one of the best of the generation? Absolutely, without question. And I don't know how you feel about that, but for me, absolutely.
I feel it probably is. I mean, like you said, the numbers speak for itself. It's still played. I can see it being played probably till the next one comes out.
Yes.
It's going to be one of these games that's going to be around for a while, and it's still getting updates. So you can understand why some people... Well, it recently won the Steam 2020 Labour of Love award.
Oh, did it really?
Basically, it did, because I think it's correct, but it basically showed that there's content updating the game and things like that, but they're updating the game for better or for worse. It's a bit different as someone who's a bit older and a bit more cynical and remember when games actually had paid for expansions, you know, where it's like, and you just look at how much money and how much things are costing the game to buy. For me, it's like, I'd like to play it, but I don't want to feel like I can't get everything I want without having to open up my wallet.
Yeah.
And like we said, it's attracted quite a few controversy itself. The whole, gambling mechanics that have come in the recent updates and things like that, and just treatment of people who have not hacked themselves but happen to be in a lobby with hackers and getting banned and things like that. So it's one of the best games and it's an influential game, but I won't say its influence has always been, well, it's been positive for the game makers, but probably not positive for gaming as a whole.
Yeah, and just to touch on the online side of things with Grand Theft Auto 5, I don't take Rockstar's excuses for the terrible way that online is handled and the microtransactions, and I don't take their excuse that, well, Take-Two are the ones that are in charge of the online. Bollocks, I'm afraid. Absolute bollocks. Whilst Take-Two are probably the ones that pushed for microtransactions, I guarantee you most of those microtransactions helped pay for Red Dead Redemption 2, which Rockstar, give me that money. Give me that money. It is 100%.
It's kind of like
My cousin works for Rockstar. He's I'm trying to remember if it's character designer or like the background character artist for both Rockstar and Rockstar Online. And I won't say some of the things that he's mentioned before, but like the amount of money that company have is obscene because of these games and these online modes. For example, when he was working for Rockstar, when he first started working for Rockstar, he was up in Glasgow. And because they started work on Grand Theft Auto Online, they moved him and his entire family with 2 kids up to America to work on this game, room and board, or just paid for. That's unreal. Can you imagine that? Like, you're working for a company and they want you to go work somewhere else, but instead of you paying for this, they do it for you. That's the scale of money that these people have. And when they say that, we'll Take-Two are primarily in charge of it, bollocks. You've got that money. Fix your system.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I'm probably think of is, I'll probably call it, it's the Blizzard defense.
Yeah.
It's, we don't decide all these microtransactions and loot boxes. It's all Activision's fault.
Absolute
the company
bullshit.
Name's Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
You would probably have as much involvement as they do.
They are 100% complicit, and that is the issue. People don't want to believe that their favourite game makers are shitty people.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean, like I said, for me, Grand Theft Auto 5, whilst it's not a game that I like primarily, I've finished it, didn't have as an amazing time with it as most people have. It is one of the best games of the decade.
Yeah, hands down, and influential as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So, next one on the list, again in no particular order, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, as a person who doesn't own a Switch, I have never played this. I would like to at some point get a Switch and play the game, because I do like Zelda.
Get yourself a Switch Lite, buddy.
I might have to get myself a Switch Lite, and I think it's nice because it proves that Nintendo can do something familiar, but also take a risk and it being quite different.
Definitely.
but it also working with the same formula, and it also being a big success. Because this is the first, because I know Ocarina of Time had some open world elements, but not as much as Breath of the Wild. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I would say that. I mean, Ocarina of Time has a very strict storyline, story progression, and you have to do things in a very particular order to progress the game. There is an open hub. It's like Hyrule Field, I believe it's called, where you can go to these different areas whenever you want, but to progress the story, you have to go there in a specific order, which to some extent is the same as Breath of the Wild. You can finish Breath of the Wild within an hour if you are that good at the game. You can walk right out of the starting area, get the equipment you need to get out of the starting area, and go straight for the final boss if you wanted to. But with Breath of the Wild, obviously the main component of the game is to defeat 4 sacred things and then go fight the final boss. But you can do all of that in whatever order you want. And to make the game easier, or to make the end of the game easier, you can do what are called these shrines. I'm pretty sure there's over 100 shrines. I can't remember the exact number, but they're all puzzle based. They're all puzzle based. You can choose to do them. They're completely optional, and it is a fun environment to be in. Mm-hmm. Is it one of the best games of the decade, of the 2010s? I personally don't think so. But that's me personally, and the reason for that being is it is a progression for Nintendo, and that's fair play to them. And it is a big open world that you can explore and do whatever you want in. But Breath of the Wild is empty. No matter what anybody says to me, and they say, well, you can do this, that, and the other, that's absolutely fine, but it is barren. There are very few NPCs in this massive open world, so you're spending copious amounts of time walking along this open world until you find either a shrine, some kind of Korok's seed or mini sort of quest or mini game, and there's a few sort of like mobs on the battlefield, and it's barren, it's empty. I mean, I've clocked up 75 hours on Breath of the Wild, which to most people is very, very small, and I've done well over half of the shrines. I've got the Master Sword. I haven't got the Master Shield yet, but a lot of the time I seem to spend time by myself, just wondering when am I going to get to the next sort of like outpost where I can like rest my horse or rest or do cooking, etc. Chat to somebody, get a side quest. Everything it's big for the sake of being big, if you see what I mean. So if you want to get to a side quest, you can pick them up at these little outposts and talk to NPCs. You can climb these massive towers to unlock more of the map. And you can go to it's very much absolutely.
It's pulled an Ubisoft.
This is what I mean. Like, I don't understand. I do understand why people love this game so much. It's an open world Zelda game, and I get that. But the problem is Nintendo fans, and I'm a diehard Nintendo fan. But Nintendo fans are so blinkered when it comes to their favorite IPs. Breath of the Wild is a great game. I'm not going to take that away from it, but it has some incredibly poor design decisions. Try saying that 5 times fast, crikey! Like the open world is big for the sake of being big. It doesn't need to be that big because it's empty. If you had more things going on in these compact spaces, absolutely brilliant. But you don't. It's massive for the sake of it. The weapon degradation system is atrocious. The weapons
I've heard about that.
Quickly. It's poor. It's a poor design choice. You climb towers to unlock the map. Come on, Far Cry did that years ago. What are you doing? Assassin's Creed did it as well. And it's like, did you learn nothing from making this big open world that you can see there's a lot of love that's gone into this game, and it's absolutely amazing. But it's threadbare. It really is threadbare. The gameplay itself is solid, it's brilliant, but it's threadbare, and I don't think I will ever agree with it being Game of the Decade. Game of the Year, absolutely. When it come out, it had some stiff competition. I personally preferred Horizon Zero Dawn because that was Breath of the Wild for adults, and there was stuff to actually do in it. But for what Breath of the Wild did for the Nintendo Switch, what it did for a generation of new Nintendo owners, absolutely fantastic Game of the Year. But does it deserve to be in the Game of the Decade list? Not for me. Not for me. And that's my opinion. If people think it deserves to be in that list, then absolutely, fair play. And it sold the Switch. It sold the Nintendo Switch because once again, with another Nintendo launch, Mario was just inexplicably absent.
Very weird, that one. I mean, it's kind of like, I think what Jim Sterling said. It's as wide as an ocean, but as shallow as a puddle.
Absolutely.
Like, there's so much space to run around and do things in, but there's just not enough to fill in the actual map with things to do.
I will always recommend people play it, though. 100%, without fail. You have to play Breath of the Wild. It's a rite of passage for anybody that owns a Nintendo Switch. Just like if you own a Nintendo 64, you have to play Super Mario 64. You have to play Ocarina of Time. You have to play Super Smash Bros. Melee. You have to play GoldenEye. Yeah. Same with the Nintendo Switch. You have to play Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You have to play Mario Odyssey. You have to play these games like Splatoon and all this sort of stuff. Because as a Nintendo, as someone who is a Nintendo fan, as someone who would recommend a Nintendo product to somebody, you always throw these games in here because they epitomize what Nintendo are about. I will never understand why Breath of the Wild received such amazing reviews as it did, but that's because as someone who has played Far Cry to death, Assassin's Creed to death, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon to death, who's played these big open world, climb the thing, unlock the map, go over here. I've played so many of them. Breath of the Wild is just that, but with a Zelda skin. But it will always fall down to personal preference, but it's not to say it's not a great game.
No.
And people should, if you haven't played it, you absolutely should.
I think I will have to as well. Like, I think what you said to me appeals to me, the fact that you can do it in any order you want. Whereas in historical Zelda games, like, you can't do this dungeon because you haven't got the hook shot. You can't do this because you haven't got bombs. So, I mean, that kind of stuff is like you come back later when to do it with the right tools. It kind of is like, all right, you give me this big open world, but it's very linear in that there's only one path open to me right now.
Don't get me wrong, creatively it's very clever because with whilst there's the open world is fairly barren, you can take on things like enemies and do these puzzles in such unique ways. All you need to do is type in Breath of the Wild on Twitter and you can see all of these people that have created these amazing combinations of bombs and time stopping and throwing weapons and shield surfing in such like fascinating combinations to overcome puzzles and defeat enemies. It's not short of creative ways to sort of entertain yourself in the game. I just wish there was more of it in a bit of a smaller space.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's good. I mean, like you said, you talked about how it's drawn from Ubisoft and other games that are on this list, which people probably know about, but there's no point spoiling it till it actually comes up.
No.
And we'll move on to the third item. For better, for worse, irrespective of how you thought, one of the most best video games or influential is Fortnite.
Fortnite. I think anybody that says it's one of their favorite game ever needs to stop what they're doing, go rummaging through the archives and start playing video games from the Sega Mega Drive and the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, because Fortnite is one of those it is a cultural phenomenon. You can't get away from what Fortnite has done for video games.
No.
It's annoying because it is threadbare, it is basic, it is simple. It was supposed to be a single player game that just got forgotten about.
Yeah.
And it's not the first of its kind to do these battle royale things. It wasn't even PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which was the first of its kind. People have been modding these games for years to have battle royale modes in.
Yeah.
Hell, you could even so far as say like things like GoldenEye, if you did like Deathmatch, for example, on any game is essentially a battle royale.
Yeah. Got down lives as long as you left.
Yeah, but how I still don't understand how Fortnite became such a cultural phenomenon, because I played it when it first released, and it seemed fairly simple, and I feel like the reason it got so popular as it did is because it's free to play.
Yeah,
and I feel like that is the primary reason as to why it's so popular.
Yeah.
But what Fortnite has done for games can be seen as two ways. It can be seen as, you know, people need to take this industry seriously now. There's a lot of money in it. But then it also attracts the horrible side of the market as well. So, you know, this thing introduced the Battle Pass, which becomes irrelevant after you've had it for a month, so you have to buy another one. It's completely tanked YouTube and Twitch, because you can no longer be like you have to be very, very good at what you do on YouTube and Twitch. If you want to do something other than Fortnite. It's a bit like how Minecraft was. Minecraft is very similar, but now it's very much, people are seeing the success that Fortnite has made and has brought on both sides of the spectrum. As a customer, you see people like going hell for leather on their creative side of things like YouTube, Twitch, etc. And then on the flip side of it, of the capitalism side of it, the amount of money that Fortnite has made by being essentially a freemium game. Yeah. Other companies are jumping in on it. You look at Call of Duty, for example. Why the fuck does that have a Battle Royale mode in it? Why does it have that? Because of Fortnite. Because of Fortnite. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Everybody wants a slice of this pie now, and unless you are very, very different but also very, very similar, you're not going to succeed. I mean, for example, I watched the most recent Nintendo Direct, and there was a Battle Royale sort of game, surprise, surprise, that to me looked incredibly interesting. But instead of like shooty bang bang guns, you were all like wizards and knights and all this sort of stuff. And that looks amazing. Will it kick off? Will it fuck? Because it's not Fortnite. No. And it's not interesting enough. Graphically, it looks exactly the same. Artistically, it looks exactly the same. Just instead of a gun, you've got a wizard staff. And I don't like Fortnite. I'm not gonna make it seem like I'm trying to bat for this game. I'm not, and I'm gonna be completely unbiased. I think it's a massive waste of time. But for other people, that massive waste of time is all they know now. It's something that, like, a lot of gamers started with Fortnite. Like, I work in a phone shop. The amount of times kids come in with their parents and they're playing it on their mobile phones. It's the first game they ever played. I'll make a joke about how one of the first games I ever played was Tetris, and they look at me like I've just fucking spoken absolute Russian. They have no idea what the hell Tetris is. But it's introduced. It's introduced so many people to video games. It has introduced, for me personally, a pants gameplay system to so many video games. But it's attracted money to this industry, and it's made, for better or worse, it's made people sit up and take notice of the gaming industry. And you think about how many indie developers have now started their adventure because of Battle Royale games. They've gone, we're going to make this one. And then they it gets a little bit of interest. Then they've made that money to then make a proper game. Yeah. On the flip side of it, you look at other studios that attempt to do it and vanish into obscurity. You look at Cliff Bleszinski, the man that walked away from Fortnite and then thought, hang on, we're going to make our own one. I don't even think it released properly, did it? And if it did anyone play it?
Early access.
Did anyone play it?
No, not really. I mean, there are some videos of it. I mean, this is the guy who essentially did Gears of War. You know, irrespective of how you feel about Cliffy B.
I will never, ever, ever have a bad word to say against Cliffy B, because he brought me some of my favourite teenage years with Gears of War. 100%.
I lost your audio there for a second. Whatever you said about Gears of War and Cliffy B.
Well, I was just saying, like, for me, I will never have a bad word to say against him, because he, you know, was my teenage years. He was my early 20 years because of Gears of War.
Yeah.
You know, I never played Unreal Tournament. I know he had a hand in that at some point. I don't know how much of a hand he had in it, but, you know...
A very good game.
Yeah, and this is the thing, like, I won't have a bad word to say against him for the games that he's made, apart from whatever the fuck Gears of War 3's Horde mode was. But, you know, why he walked away from this Fortnite idea and then, months, years later, thought, I'll give it a go, is beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me.
Something to do. I mean, I played Unreal Tournament and I've played a lot of shooters, and for me, I don't like Fortnite pure because of the fact I don't like the shooting at a guy and him turning into a shed.
Yeah.
It's I understand its mechanic and it's got an aspect of building in it, which kind of follows on from Minecraft.
A little bit, yeah.
Which was a very popular game with kids and younger adults. So it was first Minecraft, and then it became Fortnite.
Yeah.
So it kind of has that, but I prefer my two shooter and builder games to be separate.
Separate, yeah.
Because you're not like forcing one mechanic into another. And so I can kind of understand, you know, how I can understand why it's popular.
Yeah.
It's not a game for me. I'm feeling like the old gamer in the armchair, the retirement home. Was like, oh, you know, this guy and his old games. And I'm like, you don't know what it was like, kids. You don't know what it was like.
I think it, you know, as well for both you and I feel like there's primarily a big reason why we don't like it as well is we don't get it. I think for one thing, we're too old. I think we're probably not very good at it. I know certainly I'm not. I get about sort of like top 30 is probably the best I've ever done by hiding in a bush and following the blue sphere in. I don't get the
valid tactic.
Yeah, I don't get the cultural references. And I think that's a big reason why I don't like it. It's because I'm not very good at it. I don't understand it. You know, I don't understand why people like this game. I don't understand why games keep trying to be like Fortnite, other than the fact that it, you know,
money.
They've got to try and get a slice of that money pie. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's all about money.
Yeah, but to say that it's bad is subjective. But is it one of the top 10 games of the decade? I'd have to say it is. You think about what it's done.
And influential as well.
Yeah. What it's done for this industry, for better or worse, is nothing short of something to be admired and respected.
Definitely.
The amount of money that thing must make a day would make me scream.
I would just love like 1% of its revenue for a day, and I'd be sorted. Mate, for a while. I think
I'd take a decimal point of its revenue. That'll sort my debts out easy.
Sorted. Anyway, moving now on to another game. One of the earliest games on this list, and one that is very close to both of our hearts. Absolutely. I think we won't be very biased. Is Dark Souls.
Yeah. I mean, what more needs to be said?
That's
really. It. What more needs to be said? Next entry. No.
Pretty much. It's one you can probably cover quite quickly because, I mean, there was Demon's Souls before it, which was initially a Japanese-only release.
It didn't do very well, bless it.
No,
it was definitely a cult classic more than
and got such
else.
A cult following in Japan, and Western is importing it. They released it in the Western world, so America and Europe, and then Dark Souls, and when Dark Souls came out is when it really hit the mainstream. Like, things like it was janky, it was broken in places, it had terrible FPS issues, but it basically shows that even if a game is fundamentally in some parts broken and you know, borderline unplayable, if it has a good gameplay mechanic system, feedback, and story, and again world as well, people will play it and enjoy it. And again, I would say it's probably one of the most influential. It spawned so many games after it. I've now tried to like Jim still is like Souls-like is now its own kind of subgenre.
It's definitely like one of the most influential gameplay styles of all time. But let's try to shove the bias aside for a second. Dark Souls 1 wasn't a good game in terms of like its launch. It wasn't a good game. It was buggy, it was janky, it wasn't fantastic. But you can see the love for Dark Souls 1 from the developers. You can see the amount of effort that they put behind it with the story and the bosses. Let's not beat around the bush. Like, you know, walking through that tutorial area, and the first thing you see for the first time as someone who's never played a Souls game, and you see that Asylum Demon crash down, and you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do about that?
Yeah.
Like, and all you're doing is standing there naked with just two fists. Like, it's unbelievable, and it builds that sort of expectation of this is what the game's going to be about. You best get good or you best fuck off. And but it's harsh but fair. Like, technically it's not good. As I said, saying it's a bad game, I suppose it is probably a little bit extreme. It is technically bad, but in terms of what it became and what it spawned and who it brought to the table was incredible. I came to the Souls series late. I did play Dark Souls 1 in 2011. I literally, like everybody else, I got to the catacombs, went the wrong way, and never played it again. For years and years.
Everyone's got a story of someone who goes the wrong way and never plays it again.
I got to the Firelink Shrine. I went the wrong way. I was like, what the fuck is this? And never played it again. And for me, I didn't really touch upon Dark Souls until Dark Souls 2 came out on the 360. I quite enjoyed that. I got as far as fighting the Dragon Knight armor at Heidi's Tower of Flame, and then couldn't beat that and gave up. And then it was only when Dark Souls 3 came out that I genuinely was like, I need to do this. And coincidentally, it's where we met over Twitch, when I told myself, no, I'm going to beat this game, and I'm going to do it online so people can, so I can have a record of it. So, you know, it's Dark Souls, as you say, is probably one of the most influential games on this list, in my opinion, in terms of what it's done for the gaming space. Is it one of the most financially successful franchises? Probably not. It was definitely more of a cult thing than anybody else. Many people know the references of Praise the Sun for whatever reason. That even if they've never played Dark Souls, they know it. I mean, for fuck's sake, Solaire's got an amiibo. Do you know what I mean? Because it decided to come out on the Nintendo Switch. Yeah. To say it's a cultural phenomenon would be a lie. It's definitely more of a cult hit than anything else.
It's still a cult, yeah.
But what it's done for games, in my opinion, is such a breath of fresh air. And it's funny because when you think about it, Dark Souls very much is like the classic games of old on the old NES and the Master System. You know, you get a checkpoint but as soon as you get that checkpoint, everything comes back to life. Yeah, it's, you can't 100% fail unless you're playing Dark Souls 2 and you kill everything and you can't progress. Yeah.
No more levels for you.
You physically can't fail at Dark Souls, but you can only progress if you learn how to play the game. And by doing that, you'd have to throw yourself at a brick wall over and over and over again. Many people that I know, their first ever brick wall was Ornstein and Smough, or Smo, or Smuff, or Smug, or whatever you want to call him. Yeah. But, for me, my first ever obstacle was that going the wrong way. And I gave up, and it wasn't until 2015 where my first proper brick wall was the Abyss Watchers in Dark Souls 3. Everyone's got that brick wall that they eventually overcome, and they go, I get it now. Yeah, I get it now. And it is, it's whether or not you choose to carry on with that. And you think about how many games now that have done that, how many games that used to do that. For example, you think of the original Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda is so similar in that sort of design. You get plonked on this beach and you just where do I go? And you have to work out yourself. And if you've got the wrong equipment, to when you're fighting this boss, you're fucked. And this is the thing. We called Dark Souls like a breath of fresh air. It's this, it's a really hard game, but reality, it isn't. Miyazaki's a fucking genius. He's gone, what were some fantastic games of the retro era? Here we go, let's go.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal.
I was about to say, I think if there's any younger people watching this, Dark Souls came at a time where games seems progressively getting easier and easier. There was a lot more hand-holding in games, a lot more longer tutorials, which aren't an issue in something, but they try to make games be not difficult, that anyone can get through it to get through the story. And
the idea of difficulty back then was an escort mission.
Yeah, and there are also lots of options for different difficulties so people can experience the story, whereas Dark Souls says, no, there is a difficulty and this is the story. And there was no option there were options to make it easier if you knew what to do, but you couldn't make it easier or harder. You couldn't make it harder on yourself, you couldn't make it easier on yourself.
And that's the reason why to an NPC and they would tell you, oh, you should probably do this. Yeah. You couldn't do that. You literally had to experiment, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, then you have to find something else.
Yeah. So it was a fresh air because games at that point were so much hand holding. This one was like, no, I'm going to be hard. I'm going to be fair. It's like if you if you get lost this boss or this enemy, it's because you didn't know its pattern and you messed up. But by progressively throwing yourself at this brick wall repeatedly, you learn the patterns and eventually you then overcome it. And it's that feeling of joy and elation of killing a boss that you've died to 50 times.
Oh yeah.
And then being like, right, I'm gonna put that game down now because my heart can't take anymore.
Yeah, I think for me it will always be the Abyss Watchers. They were the ones that got me to the point where I was incredibly frustrated. I very nearly sold that game, and it took me a full year and a half to come back to it before I was like, I'm gonna do this. But yeah, probably the most influential game on this list, in my opinion, by miles. Yeah. Dark Souls 1, would I say it's game of the decade out of the other games that are in the Soulsborne franchise? I guess, yeah, because it spawned it.
But depends how you feel about the whole, was the first. It wasn't the first one like Demon Souls were before, but it improved so much more on Demon Souls' original formula. Yeah. And in every iteration, it's added new things, slight tweaks. Yeah. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't, but it's always kept the core formula the same, but learned to experiment.
I think the only thing that I would say that Demon Souls did better than Dark Souls was probably the way that like the frame rates were a hell of a lot better in Demon Souls, which made very little sense to me. And some of the boss designs in Demon Souls, I haven't finished Demon Souls because I'm a pansy, but some of the boss designs I've seen in Demon Souls are unreal. They blow my mind.
Yeah. Don't worry, there is a patches.
Yeah.
There's always
a patches, even if he looks like a spider.
That's true, or a spider. Anyway, moving on. So the next game on the list is League of Legends, and that came out in 2009. So I don't know how. I think it's just. Yeah, it's right at the very end of 2009, wasn't it? I've never been the biggest fan of MOBAs. I've played them a while. I've played League of Legends. Did play it for a while. I have played other MOBAs. The one I really played a lot of was Blizzard's Hero of the Storm. Yeah. I played Dota 2. So, I mean, I can understand why it is very popular. It's obviously it's 5v5. It's all about controlling the map, controlling objectives, and if you can get a good bunch of teammates and good working with your team, it's a very competitive game. Yeah. It's a very big esport, and I think it's alongside Counter-Strike. I don't think it's. While people say League of Legends is probably the game that launched it, at the same time Counter-Strike was also making good things as well, so that can't be forgotten as being one of the most influential games for esports. But I think it's true. It helps bring it out to the kind of like level that you see now. Because we've got Valve have the international for Dota 2. There are obviously global esports tournaments for League of Legends. So yeah, I think it is a fair game. I can understand why it's popular, and there's lots of different characters, so there's different play styles, builds, and everyone's got a particular role. So I can see why it's very influential. I'm probably one of the best games of this decade. It's only just in it. Although my opinion or my issue is it's got a very high barrier of entry.
Yeah, see,
and that's not very easy to pick up.
Yeah, I've never played a MOBA in my life, unless you count Overwatch, but I don't even know if you would count Overwatch as a MOBA.
I wouldn't count Overwatch as a MOBA, but I mean, it has MOBA elements. I mean, the closest MOBA shooter game would have been Battleborn, but we all know what happened to that. Yeah. Died by the wayside. So I mean, I've played a lot of MOBAs. I can understand it. I mean, obviously there's obviously lots of character builds and item builds you can use to influence a character, and it does try and, like we're talking funny about games holding your hand. It's like it does try and give you a bit. And there is obviously lots of resources out there. You can see like Twitch streamers and YouTube videos and tutorials. So it is I think in the past League of Legends has had a bit of an image problem because it has drawn. I think before Fortnite, it was the big game of young teens and younger kids.
Yeah.
So obviously from that it's drawn quite a bit of a, some would say, a toxic audience.
I've heard about this, yeah.
So I mean, I don't think that should jade its reputation of what it's done for games, and it is one of the best and influential games of 20 of this era. I mean, without, if League of Legends hadn't come about, would we see a Fortnite?
I guess, yeah.
Things
it's
like
hard for me to judge.
Yeah, because it's one of those games that prior to that, we would draw those kind of audiences in of people watching it and following the games and things like that. And it's one of those games that everyone at one point had to have a battle royale game. Everyone at one point had to have a MOBA.
Yeah.
You had League of Legends, obviously you got Dota 2, you got Blizzard trying to do it with Heroes of the Storm, but theirs wasn't successful. You have obviously got Battleborn, a failed MOBA shooter kind of thing. Blizzard have built on the kind of the foundation and done Overwatch, so and there are loads of games on mobiles, and obviously like say in China, that rely on the League of Legends formula, so it is an influential game and one of the best games. Like I said, for better or for worse, like Fortnite, it's one of the best and influential games of the decade. Yeah.
I see. Like I said, I've got very little to say about League of Legends because the closest thing that I've ever seen about League of Legends was when my other half cosplayed. Is it one of the KDA group? Like I said, I know nothing about League of Legends. I know that there's a lot of money in it to be made. I'm not sure like what that money goes towards. When I used to work for Game, my first ever Christmas there, we had a Japanese couple come in and literally spend, and I kid you not, £3,000 worth on these League of Legend cards, and we had to check to see whether or not we could legally do that. And it's Game. I'm not going to protect them anymore. Game are money hungry, so they were happy to take it. I don't know what those points were for. Whether or not they're points or what. They came in like an £18 and something else. Like
it sound a bit like
I don't get it.
That would raise quite red flags in any business. Like it's a bit like, it's almost a bit money laundering kind of thing.
Yeah. But like if they are that interested in League of Legends, then I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to lie to you. I've never seen. If I've seen a screenshot of it, I don't know what it looks like. If I've seen a video of it, it's probably that K-pop group that they did. And in terms of who they are, what they do, what these characters are, how the game plays, I couldn't tell you. I genuinely couldn't tell you, because it's not that it didn't appeal to me. It's that it came out in obviously the end of 2009, beginning of 2010 on PC. It never came to consoles, and I didn't touch a PC until properly until sort of like 2014. So for me to have any sort of input into this game, it would be unfair. For me personally, even working in a game store, the extent of which that game I saw, it was only people buying these cards. I would occasionally ask people what they're buying them for. It would be for skins. That means nothing to me.
No.
So for me to say whether or not it was influential, me personally, I would say no, because I know nothing about it. You know, Fortnite I know about because I played about 5 minutes of it. Some of the games on this list I know about because there's been a lot of talk and a lot of conversation about.
Yeah.
League of Legends, the only thing I know about it was there was a big there was like a big sort of thing about guys playing it more than girls, and that's the only thing I know about it, really. I know that it's an esport. I don't know what kind of esport it could possibly be, but does it deserve to be on this list? I'll leave that up to you, because I genuinely don't know.
I would say for better or for worse it should be. I mean, last like Fortnite, it's free to play.
Okay.
So, you know, lots of people can try it for free. It's not like you have to stump any cash up front.
Right.
I mean, obviously, if you want to keep characters and skin and things like that, that's where you start to put the money in. But, I mean, like Fortnite, it wouldn't have become as big as a thing as it was had it not been free to play.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe I should make 2020 the year that I turn on League of Legends for 5 minutes and then never touch it again.
Oh yeah, you'll feel like such an old man.
Yeah, I guess I would. So if we move on to the next item on this article.
Yes.
It's a bit of an interesting one. And to be honest, I agree with it. I'm not, before I even divulge what it is, it's definitely deserved to be in Game of the Decade. It's this bad boy. It is Pokemon Go. There we go. There's my character.
Is that a Hoppip?
Around. Yeah, that's a Hoppip right there. Let's just give him a bit of time.
Did he make the cull?
Do you know what? I want to say he probably did. I've tapped on it, but my
like
signal
Oddish
is pants.
Yeah, like Oddish. Did he make the cull as well?
He didn't make the game. No, sadly. I have a feeling that I can't.
So he got hit.
Either of these because it's broken. But
he got Thanos.
He did get Thanos. Yeah. Sword and Shield are fantastic games. I don't care what anyone says. I've clocked up 175 hours on it now. But yes, no, Pokemon Go. It came out in 2016, and I don't think I've ever known a year like it. Celebrities dying left, right, and centre. Pokemon Go comes out, and it's like the whole world is like unified. I've never known a year in which so many bad things happened. Donald Trump, for example, could happen, and yet this little game, this little phone application comes out, and there's, for that one summer, there was.
I remember
everyone was so
I played
happy
it as well. Everyone was playing it.
It's mental.
Even though at that point it was threadbare. At that point, you'd catch Pokemon. You might put them up on top of a gym.
Yeah. Now you
wouldn't directly fight a Pokemon.
No. The thing with Pokemon Pokemon Go as well is it's one of those mobile games as well that has done nothing but improve itself. I genuinely thought, it'll just be this, and then after that there'll be no more Pokemon Go. It'll go stagnant. This is what it is. But no, I mean they're introducing Generation 5 Pokemon into it now. Mm-hmm. But I digress. Pokemon Go, when it come out, was at a time where mobile games are getting fantastic. Don't get me wrong. They're mobile games are really sort of starting to push their way into the mainstream. And when Pokemon Go launched, people were delirious. I've never known such an impact to be made by a mobile game before. It did so much for the gaming market. I mean, if you look on your sort of your app store now, the amount of GPS games that you can play now is astronomical. Obviously, you got like the most recent sort of notable one is Harry Potter Go, if you want to call it that. But before Pokemon Go even come out, it was based on a GPS game that Niantic made before. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's basically exactly the same. It's the same sort of mechanic, but as soon as you got that Pokemon skin, bam, it was unreal. I think it's definitely, for the year that it came out, it was definitely one of the biggest things to happen in the gaming industry.
Yeah, definitely.
It brought on incredible sort of harmony between both mobile gamers and console and PC gamers. And it also brought a lot of bad things as well, like people dying in car crashes because they're fucking stupid enough to play on their phones whilst driving. Let's not beat around the bush. Phone apps have been doing that for years. Snapchat, obviously, is a big one. Instagram, all that sort of stuff. But this is the first time where, Nintendo had to be very careful, because whilst it's technically not a Nintendo property, it is a Niantic and the Pokemon Company property, but Nintendo owned the Pokemon Company, so Nintendo had to be very careful. It's brought on a lot of bad things and a lot of good things, and it promised to do so much within its opening window, and it didn't deliver straight away. It was very much the No Man's Sky of the mobile industry, where it said, "Oh, you can do this, 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 and this," and you really couldn't. It was as simple as catching, putting something in a gym, off you go. Now it is basically it's essentially, for me anyway, it is almost like an original Pokemon game now, with the added sort of, you can battle trainers, you can battle each other, you can trade with each other, you can obviously do the gyms, you can do the stops, all this sort of stuff. Influential? Probably not. I mean, there's quite a lot of games that are similar to it, but nothing will ever touch it.
No.
Unlike with Dark Souls, where it's influential in a way where other games certainly could. For example, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is an absolutely unreal game that is very similar to Dark Souls. Code Vein is another one that I've not been able to put down.
Souls.
Yes, but it was influential in a good way. Good games came out of it. With Pokemon Go, the most influential thing it did was spawn a Harry Potter spin-off, which, to be honest with you, unless you are a die-hard Harry Potter fan, it hasn't got a scratch and sniff on the Pokemon world. It just doesn't.
No.
But what it did for games, for what it did for mobile gaming, untouchable.
Yeah. I think as well, it was one of those games that appealed to everyone. It appealed, I think, to a lot of older people because it got them out and doing something, and possibly doing something with the younger kids. Yeah. It appealed to young kids. It was a Pokemon game, and the idea of living out your fantasy of wandering around the world, seeing what Pokemon you could find and catch in different places. You find different Pokemon in different places. Yeah. And I think for me as well, obviously, as when it came out for me, obviously a young adult, and obviously I grew up playing Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Silver, things like that. The original handhelds. It's kind of like it. I think it launched with that gen, Gen 1. So it launched with the early generations of the Pokemon that were of my would be my childhood Pokemon. So you played it for that nostalgia,
absolutely,
kind of thing. And Bulbasaur will always be number one in my heart. Not the best starter, but will always be number one. No matter what Sword and Shield says, Bulbasaur is 001 in the Pokedex.
But Bulbasaur is my favourite starter of Gen 1 by miles. I always pick Bulbasaur.
Yeah, mine's Squirtle.
Nah, don't get me wrong. Like, Squirtle was based off of my favourite animal ever, the tortoise. But Bulbasaur, man, what a boy!
Yeah, my wife's is Charmander.
Of course,
That's her favourite. That's her favourite.
Then she'll like Sword and Shield because that's the only one that got in.
So. I know, just random arbitrary decisions is basically what Nintendo took. But anyway, I could be bitter about that all day.
You could, and so could I.
Because Blastoise.
So would you say Pokemon Go deserves to be in the game of the decade list from Time.com?
I would say it does.
Yeah.
Because at the time it came out, there was nothing like it, and it just made shockwave. It just made a massive shockwave.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Influential, debatable, because nothing's really followed it.
No.
But at the time it came out, boom.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll move on to the next game in the list.
Let's do it.
Now, this is actually a game that's actually enjoyed a bit of a resurgence recently, and it is Minecraft. Because that came out early,
2009.
2009, 2010. Was very popular, faded into obscurity, and then has recently made a comeback.
It faded into obscurity for people of our age group. The most terrifying thing that I've ever seen in my entire life, still to this day, is if you open up YouTube and tap on the trending games section. Before Fortnite, it was just Minecraft.
Yeah.
Nothing but pages and pages of Minecraft.
Yeah. So again, it's quite one of these simple games which just basically drops you off in a sandbox.
Yeah.
And then it's like, go explore, build something. And in comparison to other open world games that have very little to do, obviously quite big, Minecraft in comparison, you could say is shallow because it doesn't give you anything to do particularly. It does, but it's quite hidden.
Yeah.
But the joy you would get of exploration and building, and it has obviously some survival mechanics in it. I mean, you don't have like thirst and water meters to.
Yeah.
Well, no, you have a hunger meter, but that affects your health.
Yeah.
But it's not like you have to constantly balance your needs and things like that. So it does. So it's.
You can turn those things off as well if you want to.
Yeah.
It is very much Lego for adults and quite possibly one of the most imaginative and creative games for children, as well as adults that want to express that sort of like artistic flair, I guess. The thing with Minecraft is you can't nail it down as a genre at all, because it is obviously all survival and crafting and creating and stuff, but it's not a genre because you can, whatever you want to make and do with Minecraft, you absolutely can. And the only sort of limit is, as cheesy as it sounds, is your imagination and knowing how to do the things. And Minecraft has been updated so much now that there's a tutorial for almost every single block, so it's not like you would never know how to do it. And it was before Rocket League came around. It was the sort of first game that really bridged that gap between the consoles and the PC. It did. Yeah. It's been around for so long that it's you can now play Minecraft with someone who's on PC, with someone who's on the Switch, someone who's on the PlayStation and the Xbox One. You can do that now. That is, it's bridged that divide.
It's very good that it's done that.
It is quite possibly one of the most influential games, I'd say, of all time. It really is. Yeah. Not just the decades, but of all time. It has something for everybody, be it someone who's never picked up a controller or a mouse and keyboard in their life, or for someone who has done nothing but play video games since the late 70s. It has spawned so many clones and knockoffs and people trying to get a slice of that pie. So many games now have this survival functions in it. A prime example that I personally didn't enjoy but I know got quite some success was Ark Survival Evolved. There are so many games out there that want to have these elements of Minecraft in it, which they don't nail because they don't have the one thing that Minecraft has, and that is the ability to use your imagination and build whatever you want. Game of the decade, game of most influential game of the decade, I'd say almost of all time, period. I like Minecraft. I love Minecraft. Am I good at Minecraft? I'm awful at Minecraft. But there is something to be said that if I want to go to bed, put on my Nintendo Switch and relax, Minecraft will be the first thing I do, because I can just knock out some dirt, build a shitty square house, and just enjoy my time with it. And if I want to increase the difficulty, I can. You can turn the enemies on, you can turn the enemies off, you can turn the health meters on and off. You can do so much with it. It is like the ultimate sandbox video game. It is the ultimate survival game, and for me, you can't touch it. You just can't.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, like I said, it's a game that has something for everyone, and it says the only limit in Minecraft what you can do is your own imagination. Same with like giving a kid a big box of Lego. They can do whatever they want with that, build whatever they want with that, have whatever fun they want to have. And the things that people can make in Minecraft are like, people can make fully functioning computers.
Yeah.
And you have people who've like recreated like the entire city of Minas Tirith.
Yeah.
From Lord of the Rings. It's outstanding. So
people have built working Game Boys. People have done entire like maps of other games. As you say, people have done things like build maps from films and stuff. It's unbelievable. It really is. And I could happily talk about this game for what it's done for hours. But we are pressed for time. I'm thinking about how long we've been going for now. We did an hour and 10 minutes in. If we talk more about Minecraft, we could be here for another hour.
We're true. So moving on,
I would definitely say game of the decade. It's definitely up there.
I'll probably say that. Another very influential game, and a game that's been re-released probably more times than I can count, is Skyrim. Elder Scrolls 5.
The Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. There is not really much to say other than holy hell, what a game. What a game. When this game came out, it blew people's minds, which annoyed me slightly because they clearly hadn't played Oblivion, and I love Oblivion. But the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, when it came out in 2011, it blew people's minds because it was so dynamic. There was so much you could do. There was a day and night cycle. You could go wherever you wanted. You could mug off the storyline. Characters interacted. They had their own little sort of like script in their coding that made them do things whenever they wanted to do them. The story itself, a little bit threadbare, but give or take, whatever.
And enough to follow. You can, reasonably care about it if you really want to.
You can jump in and out of it whenever you want to as well. Yeah, absolutely. Dragons, obviously. There's you can customize your character however you want. The way that you could make your character better with the skill sets involved was completely up to you and how you played the game. It did things for the gaming market that no other game has ever done since, and it basically defined the open world genre of games. Games wanted to be like Skyrim because Skyrim had that. It just had that something. Even to this day, after its thousands and thousands of re-releases, I guarantee you, if you sat down and started playing Skyrim right now, you'd discover something that you've never discovered. And the game's been out now for 9 years. You'd start playing Skyrim and you'd bump into something you've never seen before because it is that big. Anybody that's 100% completed this game is a mentalist. They are. There's no need to 100% complete this game at all, but people have. And the things that it's done for this gaming industry is outstanding. The famous quote, for example, which again will you can tell we're both Jim Sterling viewers, but the guy that said about Far Cry is just being Skyrim with guns. It is. It 100% is.
Skyrim with guns. Yeah.
It really is, though, isn't it? Me and my other half. We've played through the entire Far Cry franchise over the past year because we played Far Cry 5 together, and she really enjoyed it. So I was like, you should play Far Cry 3, 4, and whatnot. And I tell you what, it is literally Skyrim with guns. And the closest thing that Far Cry ever got to being Skyrim was Far Cry Primal. And there, you could pluck off so many open world games that are inspired by blatantly ripping off and just trying really hard to be Skyrim. There's so many. And
of course, Skyrim has spawned a legion of memes.
Oh, absolutely.
An entire legion of memes.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what this game has done.
Yes, and it's it's hard to see what Bethesda has become.
It is painful
from what it was originally like.
Which is why it's worrying a lot of people about Elder Scrolls 6. If we ever see that before World War III destroys us all.
Yeah. Well, at least it'll have 16 times the detail.
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, if it wasn't for Skyrim, someone would have made an open world game, and that would have been it, and there wouldn't have been anything more. Skyrim had that something that I think nobody can put into words. It really does have that little something where if you've played Skyrim, you just know. You pick the game up, you play it however you want to play it, and there is always something, no matter what it is, there's always just that little something that makes you want to go back to it. Talking about it now, I'm thinking about starting another save for no other reason than the fact that I'm talking about it. It's got something, and I would love to be able to bottle up whatever it is and speak it into the void.
It's absolutely bizarre. Like, even before you kill your first dragon, you could become a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
And join the College of Winterhold and become a mage. You can be this wolf mage before you even learn anything about dragons or killed anything about dragons, because you can do that. That's what you can do. You can just go sod off. I'm just going to head left.
Skyrim can literally be whatever you want it to be. It's got something that no other game has. No other game. Every game that has tried to be like Skyrim, it doesn't have it. And I think that it being in the game of the decade list, it should be almost, for me, at the very top of that list. It really should be. It's not a great game by any means. In terms of like gameplay wise, let's be honest, it's a Bethesda game. They get away with there are game breaking glitches, there are game breaking bugs, there are the game crashes consistently. There have been so many issues with the game that need patches that have never been addressed. The dialogue is weird, the voice acting is questionable, but sometimes that little bit of roughness, it can make a game. It can bring out the character in a game. One of my favourite terrible games of all time is a game called Risen. The first ever Risen game is astronomically bad, but it's got that charm, and it's playable and it's enjoyable. And Skyrim has like sprinkles of that throughout its entire game. The dialogue is, like I said, questionable. Yeah. It spawned memes, for crying out loud. But it's unquestionably one of the best games of the last decade.
Definitely. And speaking from a guy who obviously doesn't get to the Cloud District very often.
Fuck you, man.
That's it. I could keep going for a bit, but I found, in the interest of time...
Oh, please don't. Please don't. It just makes me want to boot up my Switch now and play some more Skyrim.
I might have to. Anyway, the one nearer the end of this list, Portal 2.
Portal 2, what a game. What a game.
Very influential. It builds on everything that Portal was, which is basically...
a triumph.
Not as simple, but a simple concept of just based on portals and physics, which Valve have been renowned for. Their physics engines in their games is something they always worked on. And it just built upon that. And it's a very good story. It had some excellent voice acting, and in classic Valve fashion, didn't have a speaking protagonist.
Yeah.
So you end up putting your own story into it about how they got there and things like that, what the motivations are. And it had exceptional puzzles, exceptional writing. I mean, it had Stephen Merchant in it, and
the voice acting in that game is unreal.
That's it. Cave Johnson, one of the best.
One of the best lines I've ever heard in my entire life. This is the whole sort of when life gives you lemons. What a fantastic game Portal 2 is. What a fantastic voice cast it had as well. And reducing GLaDOS to a potato was one of the most ingenious things I've ever seen in the Portal history, the Portal universe, I guess. I wish there was more. I don't know why Valve can't do trilogies. I don't understand it quite.
Why Valve can't do games anymore is probably one of the things.
Yeah. But
it
yeah, no, carry on, because like for me, like Portal 2, whilst it's questionable as to why it's on a Game of the Decade list to me, as a console gamer, as for yourself, as someone who has lived and breathed PC for most of your life, it's going to mean a lot more to you than it does to me.
It's just, I think for me, it's because I can't think of a single game that has tried to do what Portal did. There's Valve. People just look at what Portal and Portal 2 did and thought, I can't. I'm not even going to try.
No.
So I say it's one of the best. I won't say it's very influential.
No.
Because it just came, bang, it made its mark and then left.
Yeah.
So it is, but I would say it is one of the best games of the decade. It definitely is Portal 2. I mean, yeah, it was quite difficult.
Yeah.
Quite challenging, but it was you could fail and have to go back to the thing, but it was essentially just a puzzle game.
This is the
puzzle game. We moved from room to room.
It was a very clever puzzle game as well, because it wasn't just like the problem with a lot of puzzle games that I found, and a key one for me was a game called The Witness. Now, The Witness has got to be one of the best puzzle games I've ever played in terms of the actual puzzles, but that's all it had. And the thing with a lot of puzzle games is that is all they have is the puzzles. With Portal 2, it had an interesting story, in the fact that you're just trying to escape. But the interesting story, it is bolstered by that fantastic voice cast and the wit and the humour and the drive to want to carry on with these puzzles when you're stuck, just to find out what GLaDOS is going to say next, what Wheatley's going to say next. You have a reason to power through some of these hard puzzles, and this is why, for me, it is one of the best puzzle games out there, because you have, not only do you have these brilliant puzzles, but you've got a reason to keep doing them. And not a lot of puzzle games have that. They have these fantastic, unique puzzles. They have these fantastic, unique twists to their stories, but they don't have what Portal has, and it's that humour and the way that it delivers it, and it's that drive to make you want to carry on, because you just want to find out what they're going to say next.
Definitely, and it's the way it gives you the subtle hints as well, and like very quietly just tries to show you about a clue to the correct solution. They won't give you it; it never gives you it.
Yeah,
it kind of hints at it. Like you'll walk into a room and you'll see some like buttons on the floor and wonder why you've been given a cube.
Yeah.
Which you then carry from room to room and then have to then put that cube in the incinerator.
Yeah.
And then Portal 2 advances on that. And like I says, I think the voice acting in Portal 2 especially, is essentially what makes it. It's an incredible story, told and held together by a very, very good puzzle game.
Absolutely.
And it gets more and more challenging, but obviously the more skills you learn and the more things you can do with the gun allow you to get better and more furthering. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if Valve come back to games.
I don't know. I mean,
well, they're planning to with Half-Life Alyx, but it's a case of, I mean, if Valve do it, they do it right.
Yeah.
But it's just Valve haven't done anything for a while.
We'll see. But yes, game of the decade for sure. So the final game on this list, neither of us have played. I don't think.
I've wanted to play this, haven't seen some reviews on it and things like that. Yeah,
it would be very sort of unfair of us to sort of say anything about it in terms of like whether it deserves to be game of the decade or influential or whatever, because we can only go off what other people have said. So I'm going to read the excerpt from time.com, and I guess we'll go from there. I mean, so the final game that they've put on this list is Disco Elysium, and I've heard nothing but good things, as James has said as well. He's heard nothing but good things either. But this is what Time had to say about Disco Elysium. Released just months before the start of the 2020s, Disco Elysium is the perfect punctuation mark on a decade of excellent games. It's a video game that's steeped in the past but looking forwards to the future. It's the kind of video game that only comes at the turn of the decade, that special time when something ends and something new is born. In this very dense role-playing game, players wake up with a killer hangover in a grungy hotel room and quickly realise they're a police officer in the hotel to solve a crime. But that's all they remember. The details of the crime and their personal life are gone, and it's up to the player to fill in the blanks. Disco Elysium is a game that looks and plays like a game from 1999, a 2D isometric throwback with fully rendered backgrounds and point-and-click navigation. The storytelling and mechanics, however, feel like they come from the future. Players put points into stats like Esprit de Corps, which allows them to understand what cops are thinking, or Shivers, which allows the city streets to speak to you. Leveling up involves pondering strange ideas that alter your skills and change the way that your detective sees the world. It's a game that breathes new life into the old RPG format. Disco Elysium is proof of what video games fans have known for years, that the medium has special strengths, and that can tell unique stories that you won't see on TV or read in a book. It's a game that highlights how all video games are art. Now, I want to touch on that last bit, on where they say how all video games are art. I want to say that's very subjective to say that. You could say that, yes, Disco Elysium is one of those games that is an art, is definitely a piece of art. But in this same list, you've got things like Fortnite and Pokemon Go. Neither of those games would I ever classify as art. It's subjective. Art is subjective, and it will always be subjective. Like, for me, there is a can of body spray on my desk right here. If I decide to take a picture of it and sell it to somebody, I can tell them that's art, because right behind it is a stereo speaker and a PlayStation. I'm sure you could find some symbolism in it. You know, that is it's subjective. It is. Now, Disco Elysium, to me, sounds like it would be something that I would be very, very, very interested in playing, because I love the premise of this. Yeah. I think it sounds unreal.
Definitely.
And it's one of those games from description that I instantly know I would enjoy. For example, there's a game that I've been meaning to buy and play for quite some time now and just haven't bothered, but just from the description alone, I'm like, oh my god, I need to play this game. And that was Divinity Original Sin 2. Like, I've heard nothing but amazing things about this game.
I started that game 3 or 4 times. And I've still not finished it. I just get I play it and I'll get to a certain point where I'll put it down.
Yeah.
And then I never get back to it, and
I'm like that with Diablo 3. I feel like I need to
start it again.
I'm like that with Diablo 3. I pick that game up and I'm like, this is fucking amazing, and then I play it for like 6 hours, put it down, and just forget about it for months. Go back to it, and it's, oh my god, this is fucking amazing. Why have I, and game stop. Yeah. And I feel like there's games out there that definitely are. You read them and you think, oh my god, this game could be incredible, and you absorb all of the media that you physically can. But when you actually get to playing it, it's like, not that it's bad, but because your attention span is like, you've built something up to be so incredible and you're enjoying this thing, but it's like a very quick dopamine hit and it's gone. And there are loads of games out there like that. And I think, based on what I've read and what I've seen about Disco Elysium, it is very much going to be like that. And it falls back down to that very last line about how all video games are art. Not all of them are. Yeah. But I'll tell you one thing for free, is that games like Disco Elysium, games like your favourite sort of, your ideal game, you think about your ideal game that you haven't played yet, that you know exists. For me, it's Divinity Original Sin 2, and the other one is Kingdom Come Deliverance. These games are like, all I can think about is wanting to play these games and wanting to enjoy these games. But I'll tell you this for free, I would get more enjoyment out of watching somebody else play it. And that to me is incredible. That is how you know a game is art. If you personally can't get enjoyment out of playing it, but you could happily sit there and watch someone play it for hours, that's art to me. And I feel like, to me, Disco Elysium, I guarantee, now that I know that this is on this list, I'll watch a bunch of YouTube videos on it. I'll be absorbed in it. I'll want to play it. I'll start playing it, and I will never finish it.
I'll probably have to play it at some point and report back. Well, that's the end of the time list. I think, in the interest of time, maybe it'd be a good one if we both of us pick one game that we think has been influential and one of the best games of the decade that hasn't been included on this list.
That hasn't been included on this list. Oh, crikey!
Yeah, so it might be a personal favourite or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good question.
Do you want some time while I go through mine?
I'm sure you've got one already. I'll have a little bit of
one of the most influential games or best video games this decade, I would have to give to Resident Evil 2, the remaster. Remake or remaster.
Yeah.
Because one thing that's been absent from this list has been, horror games. And essentially Resident Evil is probably one of the earliest versions of games of that kind of genre. And Resident Evil 2 came out and it basically reinvented it reinvented the survival horror genre, which has been struggling for a long time, because there was Dead Space, which was an exceptional game, but then EA killed the studio, so we'll never see that again. And there was nothing. There was like The Evil Within, which again was an incredible series of games.
I loved that game.
Made by the original creator or director of Resident Evil, but I think the remake, when it came out, Capcom absolutely knocked it out the park, and I think it's one of the best games of the decade, pure because it's got so much replayability. And again, it was one of those games that at one point on Twitch you'd look everywhere and people were playing it.
Yeah.
And it was only for like a couple of months, but I would say it's one of my best games of the decade, is because it took a game, you knew what was going to happen roughly.
Yeah.
But it still was fresh enough. Improved upon, slightly different story. It was followed the story honorably enough, and there was no shock twists, but it just how it reinvented itself and portrayed it as was a really good game, and it makes me really excited for Resident Evil 3.
It was definitely my game of the year last year, hands down.
Yeah, so I think that's one game.
Kingdom Hearts 3 and Sekiro and all these sort of games come out. Crash Team Racing, for example, that was another drop dead gorgeous remake. I think it's tough for me because there are so many games that I could easily say that are my game of the decade, and I would be doing a disservice to things like Pokemon X and Y and Black and White and those games coming out in the 2010s and saying that they deserve a mention, and they do deserve a mention, because whilst they never changed the formula, every time a new generation of Pokemon games come out, they introduce a new generation of fans. And there's so many games that you could think of. Resident Evil 7, what a game that was. But I think if I had to pick one that I would say is definitely game of the decade, again, another honourable mention, Mass Effect 2 and 3. Fucking what games.
Again, missed from this list.
Yeah.
Shame.
But no, I think if there was one obvious contender for this list that was missed, was Undertale. Undertale for me was quite possibly why this game wasn't included in this list is beyond me. That what it did for indie developers. That Toby Fox started off making Earthbound fan games. A man that made fan games created a game that took over the internet in 2015 when it launched. It was so meta, it was unbelievable. It was this traditional JRPG with an incredible twist. I won't spoil it because people that haven't played it definitely need to. It had the most memorable cast of characters you can ever think of, and the most hilarious part is the art design was done in Microsoft Paint. How does that happen? How does that happen? The only other thing that I can think of that was successful that was made in Microsoft Paint was the Big Les show, and that thing was bloody weird. So for me, it has to be Undertale. It made it through indie developers into the spotlight and has changed the way we think about indie games ever since. I'm not a huge indie game player. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that they're just not for me sometimes. But every now and again, one comes along and it's special. And Undertale was special.
Definitely. I feel like we could probably spend an entire another hour or so just discussing indie games that have come out during this decade, and like Darkest Dungeon, for example.
Darkest Dungeon is fantastic. Yeah, another one of my favorites was Rogue Legacy. We could go on for hours, but we shouldn't. We shouldn't.
No, we shouldn't, and we probably should look to wrap this up. So it was an interesting article. It was good that Time did something like this, and I know that several other places, like Wired, have done their own and things like that.
Yeah.
And like I said, gaming, for better or for worse, has changed significantly in 2010.
Oh, big time.
Between 2010 and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Although I am, becoming even more cynical as I get older.
Mm-hmm.
But I still can't see myself stopping.
No, I'm going to be buried with some kind of controller in my hands. So,
probably.
Yeah. Bury me with my OG Game Boy.
I found a Game Boy Color a couple of days in my old house.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I also have somewhere. Do we still have the Legend of Zelda? And, what's the Flick one? Flick Game Boy.
The DS. Oh, the SP.
No, the SP.
Would it be like Minish Cap or Four Seasons or whatever it was called?
I have a gold one of those, so it's.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of stuff to talk about. Oh,
absolutely. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stuff for us to talk about at the end of this year as well, when the Xbox Series has come out and the PlayStation 5 has come out and the rumoured Nintendo Switch Pro that gets announced in the mid-2020s. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about what's happened in this year. But yeah, it's been a fantastic conversation as per usual. If you're watching our faces talking, then you're watching this on YouTube. So please subscribe and tap the notification bell if you'd be so kind. If you're listening to our sultry voices, you're probably listening to it on a podcast sort of thing. And I will, once we've worked out where that's going, they'll be in the description below. It's been a pleasure again, Dr. James, as always.
Well, that's Twizzles.
And we shall catch everybody in the future.
Cool. Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.